Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Apartment Department, the podcast for multifamily marketers by multifamily marketers. We are so happy today to have a guest from Rent, which is one of the largest marketing sources in the multifamily industry right now. Austin Clem, thank you for joining us. Austin, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, my name is Austin Clem. I am a senior regional solutions specialist for Rent. I look over the areas of Dallas-Fort Worth and the Houston Metro. My job is to assist our sales executives when meeting with our clients, our prospective clients, and really get an understanding of their business, their current marketing strategy, and what holes or gaps they're looking to fill in there so that we can get the most qualified prospects to their properties when they're trying to lease those units up.
That's awesome. You are right up our alley. So using data to make marketing decisions and do the right thing for the properties that you're trying to help. I know that you and Chris work together a lot. And so, Chris, why don't you go ahead and get started and just talk a little bit about your work with Austin and maybe do a deeper dive into the digital landscape right now from a marketing standpoint, what marketers should be looking for, how they should be measuring it, kind of departures from the usual suspects in terms of marketing sources and marketing opportunities.
Sounds great. Austin, as you know, we work together pretty closely and we're always looking to have an edge, right? I'm at a smaller company trying to compete with the larger companies in our industry, and we're always talking about how we can drive awareness and drive prospects. How's the digital landscape changed over the last couple of years in multifamily? I mean, I think there's been a lot of change for the good. I think it's a lot easier to reach people. We're smarter about it. What are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the last couple of years, it's changed quite drastically. I think when I first got into multifamily back in 2019, they were telling me marketing folks used one source of marketing. It was typically an iOS, and they might have relied on their property website for a lot of the leads coming in. And when you talk to people back then, they say they got a lot of drive-by traffic as well. I think as time's gone on and we were impacted by COVID and the coming of the new generation and how they look for anything online, a lot of things have changed, and people have started to realize that we cannot just rely on one source or one platform when we are trying to market these properties. And it's really opened their eyes, and they've broadened their horizon. And they've now, I go and talk to folks and they're using, 3-4 different platforms when they're trying to market. So typically you're using property websites, still very important, but you're also running paid search campaigns on Google. You got to be running a Facebook or Instagram ad. And then, of course, there's been a huge focus on online reputation as well in the recent years, just because I think the millennial and the Gen Z people are really looking at those reviews when they're looking at where they're going to go next time. I always kind of equate that to when I travel, and you guys travel as well for all the conferences. I go to a hotel and I look for a place to eat. I'm not just going to Google and typing in restaurants near me and picking the first one. I'm going on there and I'm looking at the reviews, and if they have below a 4-star rating, I'm probably not going there. Well, it's the same as an apartment. That is the digital curb appeal, if you will, for your properties, and those have to be kept. So a lot of new hats have been introduced that you guys have to wear, I think, and it's made it harder for you guys to find one place to focus on, and that's where I get to come in and use my expertise to help guide y'all to the right place and the right solution.
Let me ask, so let's start with social, because you talked about Gen Z, and I was at a conference, I was at AIM, and somebody was on stage and they asked their daughter or their kid to look up a car, and they used TikTok instead of Google. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was kind of eye-opening about how big TikTok has become, at least for a younger generation. Mm-hmm. So how are we using social these days? How are people using social to search? And we'll start with TikTok, but I want to get into Facebook and Instagram, because how does that affect Facebook and Instagram for people that are searching there as well?
TikTok has definitely been the fastest growing social platform in recent years. I think I'm with you, Chris. If you would have told me 3 years ago that TikTok would be a place to go to look for apartments, I probably would have thought you were out of your mind. For me, it was more for the high schoolers, the college kids, and they were doing weird dances. But today, that's where a lot of people get their information, whether it's Gen Z and even I know people in their 40s and 50s that are using it for an information source. So if you remember a couple months ago, Chris, the AT&T blackout that happened and nobody could make a phone call. Well, we were all kind of panicking, at least on the sales side, because we're trying to figure out how we can do our job. And somebody had the idea to go to TikTok and look up what's going on. And that's how we learned that they had an outage. Well, I think it's the same way with apartments. So people are going online and they're looking for apartments for rent in Dallas or in Cincinnati, and they're looking to see what's available on there, because to them that is a way up for them to get, like, for you to build your credibility with that audience. And if you're on there, you have your information there, they trust you guys a little bit more than anywhere else. It would that. Go ahead.
Is it a branding exercise, or is it a lead gen exercise, or is it both? And then as a follow-up question to that, and I want Ann to get into this as well because she's testing it, are you doing it one account for your company and you're kind of promoting all of your communities? Might be, I mean, for me, it's easier. Everything's in Dallas, but like Ann has properties scattered kind of all over the place. Or are you doing it per community? I know I asked you 4 questions there, but maybe you could dig in to all of those, because they're all related. I'm super interested on what the strategy actually is for TikTok. Well, what the best practices are as we know them today. Of course, tomorrow can change because that's how digital works. But maybe you can dive into it a little bit.
Yeah, so I can tell you from a rent perspective, we look at it as 2 different campaigns we can run. There is a lead generation campaign, but there's also a brand awareness play that you can do. And it really just depends on what the objective is. If you are looking just to boost your website traffic and use that to kind of help your SEO on the back end at a cheap rate, in my opinion, you can definitely do an awareness campaign. And we are going to run those ads through the entire DMA. We're going to use photos or videos of your properties that you provide us, and we'll point all that traffic after we get that click to your website, and we can kind of have those folks self-qualify and hopefully submit a tour or an online application. But there is also the lead gen way, and I think lead gen is a good way to get traffic to your property without having them jump through a bunch of hoops. A lot of folks who are online on social, they're really not trying to stop what they're doing and give you their information. So we made it pretty simple with a form fill that appears on the ad after they've gathered some information and understood if they want to live there. So the form fill appears, they fill out some information, that creates a guest card essentially, and then right after that, they just go back to scrolling, but you guys get all their information in your CRM or an email somewhere. To answer your question on how are we running these ads, we run all of the ads out of our Rent TikTok account. So it's called Rent Talk. If you ever get bored and want to go look at hundreds of ads, you can. But we get a really good response from this. As far as like benchmarks and stuff, we typically show up our ads in the top performers for real estate when it comes to the lead generation category, and our benchmark is around 5% click-through rate nationwide these days. So I think I may have answered all your questions there, Chris, and maybe even give you some information you didn't ask for. But
well, Ann, how's that compared to what you're doing? Because you're actually running these ads.
Yes, we have one property right now on TikTok for leads, and it's actually very interesting. We had it running last year, and then it looks like for the busy season from June to September, and then we stopped it, and we started again in April of this year. And we're seeing great results. We're seeing cost per lead that's on par with our other marketing sources. Our conversion rate from basically like clicks to leads is at 9%, which is really awesome. And so, I think our next step now is to look at the leads and see how they translated into leases to kind of be able to totally compare it to our other marketing sources like we normally do. But I think it's neat. Chris and I have talked about this before, but we tried to have a presence on TikTok with some of our properties, but it was so dependent on, it became an individual property strategy. And I'm talking about like having a profile, creating content, etc. And so it died out. We probably have now like 10 profiles out there for individual properties that haven't had content posted in a year or more. And so because TikTok requires really a full-time, resource to have the kind of organic presence on there, the opportunity for property management companies to have a presence on TikTok through awareness ads or lead gen ads without, that resource heavy portion of it, maintaining a profile is really important. So I can see, especially from a lead gen standpoint, continuing to expand properties onto the service. And then, I'm a little embarrassed. We haven't tried the TikTok for awareness yet, but I would love to see, what do you see when people are pairing the awareness campaigns and lead gen campaigns together?
Yeah, and I think on the awareness, I think the cost per click's a little bit lower, just because it is easier to click on it and just go to the property website.
Yeah.
I do think that it's a strategy that really needs to be considered before you go down that path, because a lot of times, and I think this just speaks to TikTok being a new platform for people to market on. They don't fully understand the goals of the two different campaigns, right?
Yeah.
Everyone just thinks that, oh, I have an ad out there, it's going to convert, it's going to get leads for me. Brand awareness, it isn't really that, right? I think we all know that we're driving traffic, but how do you measure it on the back end? So they like that we're getting them more traffic. They can see that when they go look at their website analytics, but they typically want to see a little bit more information, and we don't have the ability to show that here. But I think if you're a property that's 93, 94%, and like you're looking just to get a small incremental occupancy increase, it's a great way to kind of supplement your marketing strategy for that. But I think overall they're pretty pleased with it. They like how easy it is to launch. They like that they don't have to be the one running a whole campaign and managing that and taking time out of their day to do that. Like you said, Ian, that's 10 properties having to manage their TikTok accounts, having to go out there and create an ad every so often so that you're staying relevant. That's a lot of work. So if you want to put minimal effort into it, and be able to see at least the increase in website traffic, they're pretty pleased with what we offer.
Let me ask you this. What happens if you're a company like mine and maybe we don't have the budget right now to spend money with third party and we want to do it on our own? I guess then it's probably one account. And can a business post without paying for anything? Can it just go viral if you wanted to just post for your company out there? Or do you have to have a business account and or at least tell people on TikTok that you are a business?
I don't think it requires a lot of money to do this. The hard part is just knowing how to format the ad to gain traction. I think with any video that goes viral out there, if you have the audience for it, you can definitely get the traffic that you want from your ad or from your video. It's just a little more challenging, and that's where the benefit of working with someone like us comes in, because this is all we do day in and day out. Our people know how to quickly create these ads, how we're going to target them using our first party audience, as well as TikTok's weird Big Brother business strategy where they listen to everything we say. So you take that and you combine the two, it really helps out. I think, Chris, if you were to do it on your own, it would take a while for you to actually be able to generate the audience, the clicks, the website traffic that you're going for in order to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, Austin, I think that's a good point. We've seen, not with TikTok, but we've seen owners try and save money by running their own pay-per-click ads, for example, and then we'll go in and kind of see how it's set up, and they're maybe running on, getting clicks for like studio apartments. Well, they don't have studio apartments. And so like, they're not factoring into the fact that there's such a big learning curve, and they're actually, in order to save money, they're actually wasting money with inexperience in not having. So I can see how another platform would be very similar, where it's like you're also paying for the expertise. You guys are running hundreds of campaigns, the ins and outs of the platform.
One thing I was going to add is, to go a little further, is there's a few other concerns with TikTok these days, and I always like to say that we take on all that risk, whether it be the fair housing compliance, the security issues. I worked with one PMC that was rather large player in the industry, and their biggest concern at the time was the security of everything because of all the news we hear when it comes to TikTok. And for us to be the ones that take on all of that security risk, I think that's a huge thing that can alleviate some stress that owners or asset managers might have when it comes to the platform.
That's a very good point too. Are you getting feedback from your clients in terms of what percentage of their overall leads their TikTok campaigns are kind of providing? Does that make sense? So like compared to their other marketing sources.
Yeah, I think that it differs client to client, and it really depends on the back end as well, because we're going to bring you guys the leads, but how does your on-site staff handle those leads, and how do they work? That's kind of out of our hands, unfortunately. But I do think, because it's still like an early adapter phase, that it's not the largest percentage of all of it. Some people don't want to throw a large budget at the campaign that way. But that's totally fine. There's so many other options how we can get people to your properties.
Okay. And then my last question about TikTok, what is the average budget that you're seeing per month that you're seeing properties that you're working with spend?
Yeah. In DFW, if we're doing like a lead conversion strategy, I see anywhere from $700 to $1,000. And it really just depends on that property's occupancy, the timeline in which we want to reach a new goal occupancy. It could be anywhere in there.
Okay, great.
So how is TikTok affecting Facebook and Instagram, and how does our social media strategy change when you're talking about paid search and you have to throw PPC in there as well? How should we have a mix now moving forward if TikTok's going to be a player? And then my follow-up question, because I always have two, how is TikTok going to change Facebook and Instagram, and how our paid strategy moves forward with integrating this?
Yeah. I think when it comes to Meta solutions versus TikTok, it's two different audiences that we're trying to reach a lot of times. For whatever reason, D, C, and like low B class properties do really well on the Meta platforms, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. I think that demographic tends to spend a large amount of time on those social media platforms, and it benefits them really well when it comes to the leads we're sending them. And then when I look at TikTok, I think it's more of an A plus luxury type property. So you really have to look at what your portfolio and the type of prospect you're trying to bring in. If you have a large amount of luxury properties, then TikTok is going to be that place you're putting your budget possibly. I still think you can get a lot of leads from Facebook and Instagram as well. And then you have to look at kind of the demographic, like age-wise, of your properties, because if it skews older, and when I say older, I mean probably 30 and above, Instagram may not be the place that you go to for your ads. I know you're laughing in. So I'm 30, and I spend a lot of time on Facebook, because that is the first social platform I grew up with.
Yeah.
Excluding MySpace, because we can all get rid of that out of our mind, I think. But we spend a lot of time on that platform, and that's where your ads are going to be targeted there. But if you're trying to target younger millennials, Gen Z, Instagram is the place that they spend the majority of their time. So I think when you look at your demographics of your property makeup and your ideal client that you're targeting, that's how you make the decision of where do you want to put more of that budget from there.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, we talk about that a lot, is using data to make decisions. And so you're exactly right that like this certain solutions might not be the first line of defense for a property. It might be, based on the demographic or the class of the property. It might be something that you try after you have a core foundation of other marketing sources in place. So I love that you're talking about that and that you're taking that into consideration when you're guiding your clients.
Yeah. And I also think it's important to take a look at your strategy you had before. Have either of you guys ever used Facebook Marketplace to your units? So Chris, you guys know the rules are changing on Facebook right now, because you can't just keep going out there and putting your units unless you actually own that property. And that opens up a whole another risk, because I doubt property owners want to have their name, email, and personal information out there for prospects, super clients to see, because if a resident gets frustrated, they may go there and bug that owner. And that's a whole other storm that brings that on you guys if owners are getting bugged by residents. But we make it easy, because if that's a strategy you've traditionally done and it's worked well for you, our social ads on Facebook can show up not just in the feed or the search, but also on Facebook Marketplace as well. So we're kind of helping supplement that for you if that's a strategy you were doing in the past.
I have one more question on the social stuff before we move on to some of the other digital strategies. How is communication going to change for our on-site teams as these younger generations get older? They're finding us on TikTok or wherever it is on the next, who knows what the next social platform is in 5 years, right? How is that going to change our communication on site with these potential prospects.
Well,
Do we have any data on that yet?
I haven't seen any data coming out of it. I do think that it's leading to this idea that you need to be available 24/7 to respond to those people. Not everybody works a 9 to 5 and has the ability to message you guys while they're working from home. Some folks work late night shifts, and the only free time they have may be 5 a.m. after they've seen your ad on one of the platforms. They're going to reach out immediately. And if you have a traditional property staff that closes probably at 5:30, you may never be able to get in touch with that person. So I think it's more important now than ever to be able to engage those people when they need to, how they need to. And I think our entire world is taking a shift in this. We used to all kind of laugh, I think, when we saw chatbots on websites, but now I handled an issue with T-Mobile the other day via chatbot. I had a billing issue. I went in there, was able to communicate with them while I was actually on a call internally, and I figured I would just go ahead and handle that at that moment, and took care of it in 5 minutes. And the industry is taking leaps and bounds to make this easier for our residents and our prospects, because now we have answering services that are ran by AI and by people that can help answer that. We have chat bots, we have live chat capabilities to be able to communicate with those folks when they need to, and people have gotten used to it. I also think that the Gen Z people are really hesitant to talk to real people for whatever reason. I think COVID had a big impact on them. So if they can just handle what they need to do with a robot, it's really simple for them.
Awesome. I mean, that makes sense. I'm all about speed to lead, and I love AI technology and bring it in anytime I can. I know Ann does as well. Let's shift gears a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Ann.
I was going to say, just to that point, 47% of our leads right now are after hours. And we've found, as we've implemented AI solutions, that some of our times, like lease to move in, lead to lease, they've decreased by like 5 days as we've added in AI technology. So, Chris, to your point, speed to lead and speed to lease. And then Austin, to your point, we are seeing that people want to interact with AI, and it's necessary because of how many of our leads are coming in after hours.
And it's really needed. I think the last number I saw on like industry average missed calls was somewhere between 50 and 55%. So from a marketing standpoint, you're just throwing your money out the window if you're missing more than half the calls. You have to have something these days to really capture what you're spending and see the ROI on it.
Absolutely.
I love all my AI calls. 0 missed calls. That's it. I have 0 missed calls. AI is taking care of it, and it's running all the time. I love it. And the thing with AI that I'll just touch on that I love, I know this isn't an AI conversation, but it can handle 10,000 people at the same time.
Yep.
Right. I mean, not that we have 10,000 people running into our doors, but I'm making an exaggeration. It can handle all the leads at the same time without any problems or time constraints, I guess. So that's what I love so much about AI and why it's so important. I think that everybody implements it in our industry. Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit, Austin. We'll get off the social for a little bit. I want to talk about geo-fencing, geo-targeting, how that's changed, how we've gotten smarter about it, and also your take on whether it's a branding exercise or a lead gen exercise.
I personally think that it's a brand awareness exercise, and that's just because the way Ren operates, we don't have the ability to share with you any lead information from that person due to privacy laws. So if you're unfamiliar with how we work, we give you an unlimited number of locations that we can target for geofencing. We typically say, let's look at comps, let's look at places where people are going to spend a lot of time on their phones. So car dealerships, grocery stores even are great places to target. And then their place of work, target those business parks. So like Chris, if we're in Dallas, I'm probably targeting Legacy Hall. I'm targeting the whole Legacy office complex over there, because there are thousands of people that work at those corporations, and they're on their phone. We all know they're on their phone during the day. No one works 9 hours straight, and they're going to see your ad. Now, when they see that ad, they're going to click on it theoretically, and they're going to go to your property website, and then from there, we hope that they book that tour, do that application, and you guys get a conversion out of that. So that's my thoughts on geofencing. It's a great way to really help those properties that are close to goal and just need that little extra push while not having to invest a large amount of money into it.
I love geo-targeting. And do you use it?
Yes, on and off. but we've had a hard time, and Austin, maybe you can help out a little bit. We've had a hard time kind of selling the idea of it to owners and to our regional vice presidents who ultimately make the budget decisions. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of the success metrics you use for geo-targeting?
Yeah, so I will say we changed our success metrics pretty recently. We used to have a campaign that was modeled around a high click-through rate, which is really cool. We want to see people go into the property. So now what we look at is a what's called an offline conversion. That's
Okay.
how we are measuring success, but we still focus on click-through rate. And what we're looking at is anywhere between a 0.1 to a 0.2% CTR. But what we've done in the last year, we'll say, is we've put a new fenced-in location on all of our campaigns, and that area is going to be your leasing office. We can draw it around the entire property. We can draw it around the office, whatever you want to look at. And now we can say, okay, we know that this IP address saw the ad at a Starbucks. They clicked on it, and then they actually showed up on property a certain amount of time later. And that is giving you guys an idea of, am I fencing off the right locations or not? I think it also helps you guys identify your target prospect, because if you guys have folks that are going to the laundromat down the street, well, I guarantee you, if you have a property that doesn't have in-unit washer and dryer, that's a great place for you to start targeting. Or if you're a luxury property and you're targeting Starbucks, and you see a kind of huge number of folks coming from there, then you probably have a prospect with a little bit of a dispensable income, and they can go there and spend their money, and they can come to you guys and afford your property as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's one, you guys are evolving and you're really able to tell, if people are walking in, which is amazing. That either means that they made a tour from your ad or they found you somewhere else, but that, the geo-targeting was the first stop. And then I think that's also interesting kind of covert audience research in terms of what locations that you're geo-targeting are performing the best in terms of you to walk in. So I love that.
That's really good information, Austin. When do you think for the geofencing, we'll get smarter on how to choose the locations? Because I still feel like that's kind of a manual process. So when do you think we're going to get to the point where AI is going to help us do that based on our demographics or rent roll?
I've heard internally we're looking at this. We're talking with our teams that make this product, and they're considering ways of how we can implement AI. I don't think it's going to be too far in the future with the speed at which AI keeps getting better and better. I feel like we're going to be there probably in the next year where we can get really smart. But to that point, I still think we're going to need to rely on the people on the ground, because AI is going to look at, a rule and say, based on this, it's this. But people change. Concessions are out there, and that changes your audience that you're targeting, and AI may not understand that. So my thought is in the future, we're going to see a mix of the two, and that's going to help us better make decisions on the ground.
That's great. So we've talked a little bit about paid search, right? We've talked social, we've talked geo-targeting, we even hit on PPC a little bit. How should we as marketers be thinking about our budgets, Austin? And can you give us some benchmarks as well on what we should be seeing on our digital advertising as a supplement to some of the other things that we're doing?
Yeah. So for properties that are looking at their budgets and trying to identify where they want to put their money, I am a proponent of paid search on Google being the largest place for you to put your money, just because people still predominantly go to Google. They own, I think, 95% of the market there. So that's important to put your cash there. I think that social should be second to that, whether it be Facebook and Instagram or TikTok. It just depends on the property and what we're trying to do. Display ads are going to be important, I think. And when you have an SEO campaign, you might be running another company or on your own. You couple that with your PPC, it's just going to increase the number of prospects listening to your website, increase the traffic there. And then I think geofencing is somewhere on the lower end. It doesn't need to be a lot of money. We have budgets that go anywhere from like $250 a month all the way up to $900 a month on geofencing. So I don't ever put too much money there, but that's how I typically break it down. And then after that, we look at operations, because like we said earlier, if we're just throwing cash out there and not answering the phone calls, then we're wasting the cash.
So Austin, thank you. You have answered so many questions about the opportunity for marketing social media, the opportunity to utilize different sources based on demographic, based on property mix. Before we leave this fine Sunday morning, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what's new at Rent? I know you guys had some announcements at NAA Apartmentalize, and as we've talked about before, Rent is just exploding from an innovation standpoint. So what's new?
Yeah, so at NAA, 2 weeks ago, we just announced our new lead nurturing solution. And what this is it's a way for you guys to once again just remove one more hat from your head, from the property staff, and let us focus on the follow-up. So really the two things I want to focus on when I talk about lead nurture is when a lead comes in through rent.com or Rent Social or paid search campaign, we are going to be the first person to respond to that. So you guys don't have to, whether it's through email or through a text, we are going to reach out to that lead and say, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, thank you so much for your information. Here's a link to set up a tour for the property or to fill out the application. And we are going to check in with this person every 3 days for the first week and a half. The first text, the thank you, the next one is the tour schedule. The next one after that is going to be information on the amenities or on the property itself in the neighborhood. And if we miss them this time around, we don't want to just give up on this lead. We are actually going to reach back out 380 days after the initial lead came in. And we're going to try and get them again next time that you're looking for an apartment. So we do it again with a, hey, we miss you type message. And then again with more information on the property, and then a last chance at trying to get them to book that tour or show up on the property for an interaction with the staff. And we view this as a very important strategy that properties need to be deploying out there, because we understand that a lot of times there is an influx of leads coming to you guys, and you don't have time between handling your reviews, handling resident issues, and dealing with all these leads on top of that. So we want to just remove that for you, make it just nice and easy. And our goal is just to get that lead for you, interact with them, and then have them show up at 2 p.m. or something with all the information that you guys need to know. And you can just go tour that unit and get that person converted to a resident.
That's awesome. That is a huge announcement. That is really any success metrics. Do you guys, what are you seeing for folks that you've tested this with?
Yeah, we are seeing an increase in conversion from this. We understand that people are busy, and even when they submit a lead, they may need a few extra taps to get them over there. So we are seeing, I think it's a 3x the typical conversion over for you guys. And what I love about this is that the cost is not huge. I know there's other companies out there that with a lead nurture solution, it's a little hefty sometimes. And when you're a small PMC or a mid-sized PMC, the budgets aren't always there. So we make this pretty simple, pretty inexpensive. All you have to do is also add the marketplace, and you could actually add the lead nurture solution for $99 a month.
Wow, that's great. That is really, really exciting. Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
You're really expanding your services at Rent to kind of become a digital platform and really help out the PMCs in our industry.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. We know that it's hard to deal with multiple vendors, cut multiple checks, and we want to make things as easy as possible for you guys. So whether you're looking for, social search, reputation management solutions, or what we call our Rent Engage suite, which is when you're actually interacting with the prospects, could be a leasing call answering service, could be a maintenance call answering service, REI chatbot, or the lead nurture. We're here for you guys.
That's amazing. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that with us. It's, as we talked about before, it's been really neat to see Rent and, just how, as Chris mentioned, you're really expanding to be a full service solution for properties and their marketing needs. Austin, we appreciate your time. Chris, thank you as always. Carlos, the most thanks of anything, because you make us sound good. So we couldn't do it without you. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Apartment Department. And until next time, thank you.